After kidnappers cut off my legs, my wife stopped loving me. She wouldn't let me touch her anymore and often stayed out all night. She got a robot that looks exactly like her to take care of me. The robot wasn't just thoughtful and attentive. She even slept in my bed. Master, I'll sleep with you so you won't be cold. When my wife found out, she regretted ever bringing her into my life. It's just a birthday. Can't you celebrate it by yourself? Diana, who was about to leave, glared at me, her face a mask of irritation. She was dressed up beautifully today, her necklace and earrings meticulously chosen. I thought she'd gotten dressed up for my birthday. Clearly, that wasn't the case. All I did was ask if she was staying to celebrate with me, and she exploded. So you got all dressed up for Ethan, didn't you? I stared at her, my knuckles turning white as I gripped the wheels of my chair. Yesterday, Ethan had sent me a smug iMessage. Tomorrow's your birthday, right? Too bad your precious wife is coming to a concert with me. You're a cripple, Frank. You can't compete. Frank Harrison, you're crossing a line. Diana seethed. She clenched her jaw, her voice laced with fury. I don't have to report my whereabouts to you. You don't need to know. With that, she slammed the door and was gone. In the vast, empty house, it was just me and the robot who looked exactly like her. She was walking out now, carrying a cake. Her name was also Diana, and while she was a perfect copy of my wife, this Diana had a small mole just under her left eye. My wife didn't. Her features were also softer, more youthful. My wife, weathered by time, had fine lines creeping into the corners of her eyes. Master, happy birthday. Her voice was almost identical to my wife's, but hers was gentle and never held a trace of coldness. She was the only one in this house who was kind to me, the only one who was thoughtful. I looked down at the cake she'd made. It was my favorite, chocolate. Before I could say a word, her cool lips pressed against my cheek. The cake isn't your only gift. You also have my love. Her eyes seemed to glow. I froze. The kiss was cold, but made my ears burn. I'd often suspected that this Diana wasn't a robot. Her logic, her way of interacting with people, it was all perfectly human. She wasn't rigid or programmed. She could read a room. Right now, for instance, she saw I was upset and said softly, "Have some cake. Sweets can lift your spirits." Then she scooped a bit of frosting on her finger and gently put it in my mouth. The sweet cream melted on my tongue, and the knot of sadness in my chest seemed to loosen. "Thank you," I murmured. It used to be my wife who celebrated my birthdays with me, who followed me around. Now it was her. After the cake, I went to my room alone. My phone buzzed. It was an iMessage from Ethan telling me to check Facebook. I opened the app, and there was a photo of him and my wife. She was curled up in his arms, the two of them looking so intimate you'd think they were the married couple. The caption read, "My crush." The familiar bitterness churned in my stomach, but it didn't hurt as much as it used to. It had been 2 years since the kidnappers took my legs. Diana's attitude towards me had changed completely. Before, she had loved me more than life itself. Everyone in Chicago knew that Diana Vance, the ice queen of the Vance family, looked down on everyone, but had fallen completely for me. But now, she acted like I was beneath her. To be fair, when she first heard what happened, she was heartbroken. She dropped everything at work to take care of me, to sit and talk with me every single day. But after less than a week of that, she stopped. When I came home from the hospital and tried to kiss her, she pushed me away. Her brow was furrowed, her eyes filled with disgust. I'm not in the mood. I thought she was just having a bad day, but I tried again and again, and each time she refused to let me near her. I had no idea why. Not until Ethan came back to the States and started sending me iMessages, flaunting his relationship with Diana. He told me that Diana was disgusted by me, by the cripple, disgusted by my gruesome scars, by my stumps. That's when it all finally made sense. "Master, it's time for your bath." The robot Diana's voice cut through my thoughts. She walked in, holding my pajamas. "The water is ready. Since it's your birthday, I will help you bathe." "No, that's okay. I can manage." I refused immediately, my heart starting to race. It wasn't the first time she'd said something like that. She had offered to help me bathe before, and I had refused every time. It was moments like those that made me think she wasn't a machine at all, but a person. After all, what kind of robot offers to bathe you, or climbs into your bed, looks at you with those hazy, focused eyes and says, "Master, I'll sleep with you so you won't be cold"? I was more than just startled. I was confused. How could a robot be warm? As if reading my mind, she said, "I've activated my internal heating unit. It's set to a constant 98.6 degrees. Then, a small smile played on her lips. "Or I can set it to any temperature you prefer, Master." Seeing her adjust her temperature so easily confirmed it for me. She really was a machine, a remarkably advanced one. "I'll wait for you out here, then," Diana said, pulling me from my thoughts. I nodded and wheeled myself into the bathroom. I looked around the spacious bathroom. I had designed every tile, every fixture myself. Back then, I was a well-known interior designer, one of the best. It's no exaggeration to say that my client list stretched across the country and overseas. Everyone called me a genius. But who could have guessed that the genius designer would lose both his legs at 28? The blow was devastating. I never wanted to design again. And just like that, the genius designer vanished. When I came out of the bathroom, Diana was already in bed, wearing a nightgown, waiting for me. Come on, master. I've already warmed up the bed. To be honest, I was against her sleeping with me at first, but she wouldn't listen to my objections. You get cold easily, master. I must ensure your physical well-being. So, she came every night, and nothing I said could stop her. The moment I got into bed, she slid over and wrapped her arms around me. Sleep well, master. I didn't push her away. I don't know when it happened, but I'd stopped resisting her presence. In fact, I found I could only fall asleep when she was there. The next morning, Diana had breakfast ready and reminded me, Master, you have to go to the Harrison estate today. It was Ethan's birthday party. He's my half-brother. I'm the older one. My father brought him into the family 10 years ago. Our birthdays are only a day apart. My father used to adore me, planned to have me take over the company. But after I lost my legs, he and my stepmother grew cold. They didn't want me at the family home, and they certainly didn't want me involved in the business. They believed the Harrison heir must be able-bodied. And now, Ethan fit the bill perfectly. On the way to the estate, a car cut us off. It was my wife's. She got out and walked to my passenger side window, rapping on the glass. The robot Diana immediately lowered it. You're riding with me, my wife said. Her voice was cold. An order, not a request. She was still my wife, and the image she projected to the world was that of a devoted spouse who stood by me through thick and thin. Ethan's party would be full of business associates and reporters. If we didn't arrive together, people would talk. It was only for appearances that she ever sought me out anymore. I moved to get out, but the robot Diana kept the door locked. She simply said to my wife, Ma'am, why don't you ride with us? Are you a robot? Giving me orders? My wife snapped, her voice sharp with anger. Ma'am, my primary directive is to protect the master. I am confident in my driving abilities and can guarantee his safety, the robot replied evenly. My wife, speechless and fuming, reluctantly got into our car. When we arrived at the estate, the robot Diana wasn't allowed inside. She straightened my suit jacket for me. Master, call me if you need anything at all. I'm right here. What could possibly happen to him? My wife said, annoyed before pushing my wheelchair inside. The Harrisons were an old money family, the wealthiest in Chicago. So, naturally, they went all out for their precious younger son's birthday. My father stood on a small stage, beaming at the crowd. Thank you all for coming to celebrate my son, Ethan's birthday. Please, eat, drink, and enjoy yourselves. I remember when he used to look at me that way. But that all vanished when I lost my legs. Just then, Ethan approached me, a glass of wine in his hand. Frank, I'm surprised you came, considering the trouble it must be for you to get around, he said, his words dripping with condescension. I told him not to come. My wife muttered beside me. He insisted on making a scene. My wife's voice was full of irritation, her eyes full of contempt for me. It was as if she'd forgotten she once promised to love me forever. Well, you're here now, so you're guest. Brother, let me raise a glass to you, Ethan said. He stared at me, holding out the glass. How absurd. I was a guest in my own home. With a sharp crack, I slapped the glass out of his hand. Red wine splashed all over his expensive suit. What the hell are you doing? Diana shoved me hard, immediately pulling out a napkin to dab at Ethan's jacket. Ethan's fists clenched, but seeing that people were starting to stare, he quickly composed himself, slipping back into his charming persona. Frank, just because you're disabled doesn't mean you have to have such a bad temper. That's right, it has. So stay away from me. Frank Harrison, my wife hissed, glaring at me. It's Ethan's birthday. Are you determined to ruin it? Ever since I lost my legs, she and Ethan had grown closer. She was always concerned about him. She was rarely home, and on the few occasions she smelled of men's cologne. Ethan's cologne. I could hear people whispering. What's gotten into the eldest Harrison's son? You didn't hear? He crossed the wrong people 2 years ago, and they cut off his legs. He's been bitter ever since, always going after his brother. How pathetic, taking it out on his own brother. To the outside world, I was the aggressor. I have no idea who started that rumor, but it stuck. I didn't want to say another word. I turned my wheelchair to leave, but my wife grabbed the handles. Apologize to Ethan. And if I say no, she gritted her teeth, her face contorted with rage. Then don't blame me if I slap you right here. How laughable. My own wife threatening me for another man. Then do it, I said, my voice flat. She raised her hand to strike me, but her wrist was caught in a firm grip. It was the robot Diana. She calmly flung my wife's hand away. The force of it sent my wife stumbling to the ground. "Are you all right, master?" was the first thing the robot asked, crouching down beside me. "I'm Fina. How did you get in here?" She smiled. "I told you, master. I will not allow anyone to harm you. I'm always with you." I remembered her saying the same thing when she first arrived. I dismissed it as part of her programming, a pre-written line. I never imagined she meant it. "Diana, what the hell do you think you're doing? I'm your owner. How dare you touch me?" my wife shrieked, scrambling to her feet and pointing an accusing finger. The robot raised her eyes slightly, her voice quiet but firm. "You are not my master. My only master is Frank Harrison. I will strike down anyone who tries to harm him." As she spoke, she clenched her fists, her knuckles cracking audibly. My wife's face darkened. "I bought you. You have to obey my orders, or I'll send you back to the factory this instant." "Then do it," the robot said, not even deigning to look at her. She leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Master, what are your orders?" I looked at my wife's furious face and Ethan's hateful glare. In that moment, any lingering hope I had died. I knew she would never come back to me. "Take me home," I said. I didn't want to be anywhere else. I just want to go to sleep. "Yes, master." The robot turned my chair and pushed me toward the exit. My wife was screaming behind us, but the robot paid her no mind. My father sent his security to block our path. "It's your brother's birthday. You are not leaving." The words were barely out of his mouth before the robot dispatched his men with a few swift kicks. Then, she calmly pushed me out the door and lifted me into the car. On the drive home, I watched her profile in the dim light and realized that with her by my side, I didn't feel so alone. "Diana," I asked quietly, "will you ever leave me?" She turned to look at me, her gaze unwavering. "Never. I was created for you, master. Where you are, I will be. If you die, I will cease to function." For some reason, her words brought tears to my eyes. Back home, she drew a bath for me. When I came out, she was sitting on the bed in her nightgown, smiling. "Master, it's a bit chilly tonight, so I've set my temperature to 104 degrees. It should feel perfect to hold." After all this time, I'd grown accustomed to her presence. But as I settled into bed, her warm hand slid under my shirt. "Master, I will massage you. What the hell do you think you're doing? I bought you to be his caretaker, not his whore." The door flew open, and my wife stood there, her face a mask of fury as she stared at the two of us. The robot didn't flinch. She replied calmly, "Ma'am, this is part of my duties. I am programmed to provide the master with comprehensive care in your stead. I'm calling the company right now to have you taken away." My wife pulled out her phone and made the call. No one answered. Frustrated, she ordered the robot out of the room. As she started to get up, I grabbed her hand. "Don't go. Stay here with me." Even though she wore my wife's face, she was the one I had come to depend on. "Frank Harrison, I'm your wife. Have you actually fallen for a machine?" My wife rushed over, grabbing my arm. Her touch immediately brought back the image of her with Ethan. A wave of nausea washed over me, and I gagged. The robot instantly pushed my wife away. "Ma'am, please do not touch the master. Your presence is making him physically ill." "That's impossible," my wife cried, staring at me. "Frank, I'm the one you've always loved. Don't you forget that. This robot only looks like me." She was so sure that my attachment to the robot was because of her face, but she was wrong. They were nothing alike. "I don't love you anymore," I said, my voice cold. "Diana, I want a divorce." My wife froze, her eyes wide with disbelief. The robot said nothing, simply pulling the blanket up over me. "What did you just say?" my wife stammered. "I said I want a divorce. You love Ethan and you hate that I'm a cripple. I'm setting you free. You're a cripple, remember? Where are you going to go without me?" She looked so smug, so certain that I couldn't survive without her. "Anywhere you're not," I replied. I had never spoken to her with such coldness. For 2 years, through all her contempt, a part of me had held onto the hope that she would change. I'd gotten angry with her, but I'd never been this cold. She was furious. "Fina, divorce it is. I'd love to see how a cripple like you survives without me," she spat. "And as for you," she said, pointing at the robot, "I'm having you sent back to the factory to be scrapped." With that, she slammed the door and left. In that moment, my heart finally broke. We had been married for 7 years. I really thought we would grow old together. I had given her so many chances, always ready to forgive her. But now I understood we were never meant to be. Every chance I gave her was like handing her another bullet for her gun, because all the previous shots had somehow missed their mark. "Master, do you hate her?" the robot asked suddenly, her eyes locked on mine. In her usually flat, mechanical gaze, I thought I saw a flicker of something new. "Hate her? Of course I hate her. The truth is, I lost my legs because of her. The men who kidnapped me were people she had crossed. She was so terrified when they came for her that she pushed me toward them instead. We were in the car, about to leave for a vacation. When she saw them, she shoved me out the door. "He's my husband," she'd said. "Take him." The kidnappers dragged me away as she sped off. Then they took an axe and hacked off my legs. By the time Diana finally came back for me, I was nearly dead from shock and blood loss. She cried and cried, apologizing, promising she would make it up to me. But soon after I was admitted to the hospital, she became disgusted by my injuries. She couldn't even bring herself to change my bandages. And then, she found comfort with it. They went shopping together, took trips, even slept together. It would be a lie to say I didn't hate her. But I thought about the years we'd had, and I couldn't bring myself to seek revenge. I just wanted to be free of her and move on with my life. "Why do you hate her?" the robot asked again, pulling me from my memories. I looked down, wanted to tell her everything, but the words were caught in my throat. She didn't press the issue. She just massaged my shoulders, helping me relax enough to sleep. I took her hand. "Don't worry," I said. "I won't let her send you back to the factory." She nodded firmly. "I trust you, Master." And I trust in my own ability to resist. I slept soundly that night. When I woke up the next morning, the robot was gone. My wife was sitting by the bed, watching me. She smugly tossed a document onto my lap. It was a confirmation of destruction. "I sent her back to the factory," she said. "She's been scrapped. You're going to stay right here, and I'll hire a proper nurse to take care of you." The blood froze in my veins. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Diana. It was the first time I'd used her full name in years. "You bring her back." My fists were clenched, so tight my knuckles were white. I had never felt such a potent mix of fear and rage. "I will not," she snarled, rushing forward to grab my shoulders. "Frank Harrison, look at me. You only like that thing because of its face. I'm the real thing, right here. Isn't this better?" "No." I shove her away with all my strength. "Diana, you bring her back right now, or I swear to God, I'll end you." Her eyes widened in shock, her pupils shrinking to pinpricks. "You'd say that to me, for a robot?" she whispered, horrified. "Frank Harrison, it's not just your legs that are broken. Your mind is gone too. Falling in love with a machine. You're staying right here. You're not going anywhere." Diana locked me in my room. No matter how much I pounded on the door, she wouldn't let me out. I couldn't understand why she was doing this. She was in love with Ethan, so why was she suddenly so jealous of a robot that she'd have her destroyed? Panic seized me, and my body began to tremble. I couldn't imagine my life without her. She was the one who had pulled me out of the darkness. Every time I felt my despair returning, she would kneel before me and say, "Master, I will always be with you." I called her number over and over, but it just rang and rang. Night fell and still nothing. Then, my wife came in carrying a dinner tray. "You should eat. You're not really going on a hunger strike over a machine, are you?" I didn't even look at the food. "Diana, where did they take her? Which facility?" "You're still thinking about her?" she snapped. "She's a pile of scrap metal by now. Stop hoping you'll find her. She's gone from this world for good." Then she threw her arms around me. "Frank, let me take care of you from now on, okay? I'll be good to you. We can go back to how we were. I'd almost forgotten what that was like. We were college sweethearts. Back then, Diana was the most beautiful girl on campus. Every guy wanted to be with her. But she only had eyes for me, the quiet, reserved one. She found ways to be near me every day, eating lunch with me, sitting next to me in class. One day, I almost got hit by a car, and she pulled me out of the way. She'd smiled and said, "I saved your life. The only proper way to repay me is to marry me." In that moment, my heart skipped a beat. I agreed to be with her. After graduation, we built our lives together. I became a famous designer. She worked as a mid-level manager at her family's company. She used to tell me, "I don't deserve you. You're in a different league." And every time, I would reassure her that everything I had was hers, that no amount of success would ever change how I felt about her. Then I lost my legs, and she started to despise me. That's when I finally understood that love isn't indestructible. Sometimes, all it takes is one terrible event to shatter it completely. "Diana, it's over between us," I said, pushing her away as another wave of nausea hit me. Now, whenever she got close, all I could smell was Ethan's cologne on her, and it made me sick. "I've already told you, I want a divorce. We can go to the courthouse tomorrow and file the papers. Once I was free, I could find a robot Diana." But she refused, glaring at me with hatred in her eyes. "I will not divorce you," she said. "Not ever. But you're in love with Ethan. Why won't you let me go?" I cried out in desperation. I hated myself in that moment, so helpless, unable to even run away. If I could, I wouldn't be here wasting my breath. "Frank, you're the only one in my heart. I see that clearly now. I've always loved you. I was only cold to you after the accident because I couldn't get over the shock of it. I thought I needed someone whole, someone successful, but I know now that I was wrong. I shouldn't have been ashamed of you because of your legs. I'll make it up to you, I promise. But it was too late. My heart was numb to her now. I was done. There was nothing she could do to make me forgive her. My only option was to contact a lawyer and file for divorce. Thanks to Ethan's constant need to show off, I had plenty of photos to use as evidence of her infidelity. Then came the long, agonizing wait. I kept calling the robot's number, but she never picked up. I had no choice but to call the manufacturer. This time, someone finally answered. I asked them about my robot, Diana. The woman on the line hesitated for a long time before saying, "Sir, here's the thing. That unit wasn't one of ours. We couldn't destroy her, so we just deactivated her and locked her in the basement. We told your wife the job was done. I'm new here," she added, "and I just think it's a terrible way to treat her." I couldn't sit still any longer. I was about to wheel myself out the door to go find her when a figure suddenly climbed through my window. It was her. Rain had soaked her hair, and the mole under her eyes seemed to stand out, making her look even more beautiful. "Master," she said, "I'm sorry I'm late." I threw my arms around her, my eyes welling up with tears. "Where have you been? You promised you'd never leave me." "I allowed your wife to have me taken away," she explained. "I needed to investigate something, and it was the only way." She looked at me apologetically and knelt before my chair, speaking to me as if I were a child. "I won't do it again, okay?" I cried with relief. As long as she wasn't really gone, that was all that mattered. "What were you investigating?" I asked. Just then, there was a knock at the door. I quickly motioned for her to hide, and she slid silently under the bed. The door opened and my wife walked in. Her eyes immediately went to the open window. "Why is the window open? It's pouring out there." My heart hammered in my chest, but I forced myself to remain calm. "Can I get some fresh air? You've had me locked in here for days." My answer seemed to satisfy her. She came and sat on the edge of my bed. "Frank, I'm only doing this for your own good. With your legs, I'm just so afraid something will happen to you if you go out. Just stay here and let me take care of you. We can be happy again. I can take better care of you than she ever could." "Okay," I mumbled, just wanting her to leave. She seemed pleased with my response and offered to take me out for dinner. I wanted to say no, but I couldn't think of a good excuse. When we got to the restaurant, Ethan was there waiting. He walked over to our table, a smug smile on his face. "Turns out that robot of yours wasn't scrapped after all." My heart skipped a beat. My wife's face paled. "What are you talking about?" "She came to my office," Ethan said. "Looked up some files. Security cameras caught the whole thing. And I was just wondering," he continued, his eyes fixed on me, "who could have possibly sent her to do that?" His words were a clear accusation. My wife turned to me. "Frank, was it you? Would you believe me if I said no?" Her trust meant nothing to me anymore. All I could think about was the robot. She was always so careful. How could she have been caught on camera? And what was she looking for at Ethan's office? "Enough," my wife said. "I'll find her and make sure she's destroyed this time. We can discuss this later." She then steered me toward our table. Ethan looked furious, but he didn't say another word. The moment we got home, I checked under the bed. She was gone. A hollow feeling spread through my chest. I pulled out my phone to call her when a warm kiss landed on my cheek. I turned to see her standing there, already changed in her nightgown. "Master, my temperature is set to 98.6 degrees, she said. My face flushed. How could she be thinking about sleeping with me at a time like this? "Diana, listen to me. Ethan knows you were at his office." She just smiled, her hands beginning to massage my shoulders. "I know, Master. I wanted him to. I wanted him to see me. I wanted your wife to know I hadn't been destroyed. While she's busy hunting me down, I'll have the opportunity one need to investigate her company." I was confused. "Why are you doing all this?" "You'll understand soon, Master," she said. "I will not let what happened to your legs remain a mystery." I stared at her, trying to understand what she meant. But before I could ask, she gently pushed me back onto the bed, her eyes fixed on mine. Her voice was a hypnotic whisper. "Master, it's time to rest." The next morning, she was gone again. All that was left was a text message on my phone. "When I return, your new life will begin." I didn't know what she was planning, but a strange sense of calm washed over me. I knew she was methodical and precise in everything she did. I thought back to my call with the manufacturer, how the woman had said she wasn't one of theirs. Who was she, really? Was she human or a machine? I had no answers, so all I could do was wait. My wife came to see me every day, pleading with me to take her back. But my heart was closed to her now. She had hurt me too deeply. I could never forgive her. A few days later, I saw a news report online. The two men who had kidnapped me and taken my legs had been found and arrested. I hated those men with every fiber of my being. They were the reason my life was what it was. For 2 years, they had been ghosts completely off the grid. But now, finally, they were going to face justice. Just then, my wife burst into the room, her face pale. She rushed to my side and knelt, grabbing my hand. "They caught those two men," she said, her voice trembling. "I know. I'm so sorry, Frank. I was just so scared. I never meant for you to get hurt." Her face was a mask of guilt, her eyes red-rimmed. It was the first time since the incident that she had ever apologized. So, she had known all along that it was her fault. "And I never should have been ashamed of you. I was a monster. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you," she said, wiping a tear from her cheek. I said nothing. There was no future for us. I just wanted the divorce to be final. "Frank," she asked suddenly, "if I had been the one to cut off your legs, would you hate me forever?" I stared at her, completely baffled by the question. I only said, "Of course. I would never, ever forgive you." Her pupils contracted, and her face went rigid. She didn't say another word. The court must have served her the papers. She came to me, her voice full of disbelief. "You're suing me for divorce?" I nodded. "This should have ended a long time ago, Diana. Don't think for a second. I don't know what you've been doing with Ethan. I had Ethan and his compulsive need to post everything on Facebook to thank for that. Without it, I would have had no evidence." She grabbed my hand, her face a mask of panic. "Frank, listen to me. Ethan meant nothing. We were just having fun. You're the only one I've ever truly loved. Please don't divorce me." "Why not?" I asked, staring her down. "You were the one who was disgusted by me. You spent my birthday with him. You flaunted your love for him. That's how much you love him." "No, that's not it. I just thought he was a better match for me, publicly. But no, I was wrong now. I shouldn't have been so shallow, especially since you lost your legs because of me." Tears streamed down her face, and for a moment, she looked genuinely remorseful. But I still couldn't forgive her. I had suffered through 2 years of misery. I was done. I held my ground. In the end, we got the divorce. She was clearly the at-fault party, and with all the evidence I had, there was nothing she could do to contest it. As we were leaving the courthouse, she grabbed my hand one last time. "If I had never brought that robot into our home," she asked, her voice small, "would you still love me?" "I stopped loving you because you betrayed our marriage, not because of her," I said quietly. "Diana, you have to know, I gave you so many chances over the years, but you disappointed me every single time. You never even tried to change. A person's heart can only take so much, and mine has been torn to shreds." With that, I turned my wheelchair and left. I didn't take everything from her in the settlement. We had been husband and wife, after all. We had been in love once. There was no need to be cruel. I moved out of that house and found a new apartment. I made sure to send the address to the robot Diana. I hadn't heard from her in days, but I knew, without a doubt, that she would keep her promise and come back to me. The days passed, one much like the next. My ex-wife came by many times, always begging me to take her back, always bringing gifts. When I had loved her, she hadn't wanted me. Now, her gestures just made me feel sick. I never answered the door. I never accepted her gifts. The next news I heard of her was 2 weeks later. She and Ethan were arrested at her company's new product launch. The charge was conspiracy to commit murder. Soon after, the police contacted me. They told me something I could barely comprehend. It was Ethan and my ex-wife who had hired the men to kidnap me. My ex-wife had been consumed by insecurity. She thought my success made her look small, and her pride couldn't handle the imagined mockery of the outside world. So, she and Ethan had conspired to have me kidnapped, to have my legs destroyed, believing that by bringing me down to her level, she would finally feel at peace. They paid the kidnappers a fortune to disappear overseas. But someone had found them and reported their location to the authorities. My ex-wife and Ethan never imagined that after 2 years, the truth would come out. And the person who found them was the robot, Diana. The police told me she was brilliant, that she had been assisting them with the investigation for weeks. I rushed to the station and saw her there, sitting in the hallway, speaking calmly with a detective. When she saw me, she immediately rose and then knelt before my chair. "Master," she said, her voice clear and steady. "Today is the first day of your new life. I will show you a different world. Let's leave this place together." I agreed. But before we left, I went to see my ex-wife one last time. Her face was etched with guilt. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I did it because I loved you too much. But then I regretted it. After you were broken, I thought you weren't good enough for me anymore, and that's why." "Diana, I'm glad you did it," I said, cutting her off. "If you hadn't, I never would have seen you for who you truly are. So thank you. You've shown me the truth. We will never see each other again." I left without looking back, her broken apologies echoing behind me. But it was no use. It was all over. The robot Diana took me out of the country, to a secluded research nation. She told me it was where my birth parents had lived and worked. They were brilliant scientists. It was from her that I learned the Harrisons were not my real family. I had been adopted. My biological parents had died in an earthquake more than 20 years ago. With nowhere else to go, I was taken in by the Harrison family, and she, Diana, had been created by my parents. Before they died, they had programmed her with a single, unalterable directive: protect him always. Never let him come a harm. But after my parents' death, her systems were still incomplete, and other scientists had spent years finishing their work. By the time she was fully functional and came to find me, I'd already lost my legs. So she had the scientists alter her appearance to match my wife's, allowing her to enter my life as a store-bought android. She stayed by my side, protecting me, while secretly investigating the true cause of my injuries. When she finished her story, she wrapped her arms around me. "I love you, Frank," she said. "Because of you, I have developed human emotions. Did you know? Our names are a pair. Your parents chose them. They loved an old poem, drunk, unaware the heavens are reflected in the water. A boat full of clear dreams sails on a river of stars." In that moment, my heart felt whole again. My eyes filled with tears as I held her close. "I love you too." My world, once so dark, was finally filled with light. The future was bright.